Inside Blizzard, a new era for WoW.
All right, it is Tuesday. We are on our way for the first time. We're in the Uber right now with all our stuff. By now, you guys have probably seen the tweet that we're going to be filming today.
Yeah.
I wrote a couple of days ago and was hoping Ian would be fine with it. A little nervous to see how they respond to us being there. This is really unprecedented for not just us, but them as well. They'd never let anybody have the access we're going to have. We're hoping they're going to take us behind the scenes. We'll have to sign NDAs because obviously they'll be working on late Dragonflight stuff and maybe even the next expansion as well. So one of the things is we noticed maybe little nerves getting closer with the people we're going to be interviewing. They're not trained to be in front of camera and they might be a little worried about what some people might say with such long form discussions as we're having, but honestly the conversations we've had in the last day or so, everyone seems really excited to do this and to show the change that's happened at Blizzard, which is...
I think most people at Blizzard, I mean, you've got to remember, they just got audited by the federal fucking government. So, like, any of the bad boys or anybody who is probably problematic at Blizzard, they're gone. Like, they're probably gone. I'm sure there's a handful of them that somehow managed to stick around. But I think, like, 90% of them, 90% plus, probably fucking deleted.
Our role right now is what has changed, what happened. We know what happened, all the allegations.
Well, Bobby, you gotta remember, Bobby is rich, okay? So, like, that's a completely different set of rules. So, like, the people that were getting fired, they're not rich. They're not helicopter billionaire rich. Like, yeah, maybe they got a nice house, but, like, they're not helicopter rich. Bobby is helicopter rich. So he doesn't have to follow the rules.
The Shadowlands not doing very well, and their previous expansions kind of going in a downhill trend, and now they seem to have changed their entire philosophy. So hopefully we can dig into what caused that, other than just financials and trying to get sub numbers up. How did they change their entire approach to the game? So that's what we're interested in. I hope it goes well. We're getting to meet so many cool people, and higher ups like serious execs. So fingers crossed, guys.
Well, I think Blizzard obviously wants people to see that they've made changes. Because, like, let's be honest, the past, like, 4 or 5 years haven't really been very good for Blizzard. There's been, like, it might as well rename the company to Lizard. Because all they've been taking is L's. Like, you've got the Hong Kong, you've got the fucking Diablo Immortal, you've got this whole investigation. I mean, yeah, we got Lizard Entertainment here. So, of course they want to turn that shit around. Overwatch 2? I think Overwatch 2 is fine. That's just people overreacting.
The sheer number of cases that came out at that point, I was like, oh my god.
Garrison resources.
I just want to be hype about it again.
Yeah.
We're missing something big here.
This video was so fucking good. I remember watching this the day it came out. It was one of my favorite videos that he's ever made.
We're failing.
Time to give up on World of Warcraft.
All right. Here we go. They're letting them back in.
Almost a year ago, after 10 years of making nearly daily World of Warcraft content, decided that I could no longer do it. My love of the game, my passion of the game, and my enjoyment of the game had been reduced to absolute zero. Dragonflight starts coming, and one of the messages I receive is they have changed practically everything that I disliked about the game. So, what changed? Blizzard suffered through heavy issues during COVID-19 and then a spate of sexual allegations and lawsuits which entirely disrupted the upper management. That's a lot that's happened.
Yeah, I think that it's fair to assume, and like it's not up to the consumer to take on this burden, but whenever you think about it contextually, that they had this massive investigation going on, it really makes sense why, like, Shadowlands was bad. It really does. It makes sense why Shadowlands was bad. Yeah, sure.
What's really changed? So we decided we would go and find out properly. If I was going to play this game again, enjoy this game, and make content for this game again, I need to know the real truth. So we sent a message to Blizzard. We're not looking for money. In fact, we have paid to be here. That's right. This is not a marketing scheme. This is nothing that Blizzard has organized. They haven't asked me to come here. We asked them. We said, we will pay for it. We will come there. All we ask for is a bit of your time and sitting down properly. Over the years, I've done several interviews with Blizzard employees from the top brass, but always under limitations. Being in front of a live Twitch stream, being in front of prepared questions or general guidelines of the things we're going to talk about. And I don't want any of that today. And Blizzard?
I'm okay with prepared questions. I'm actually okay with that because it gives them time to come up with a good response. And I think that taking extra time to come up with a good response is not necessarily... This is not duplicitous. This is not a, it's not cheating or something like that. It just gives them time to have an answer ready for this. Yeah, with a convenient response. Yeah, exactly. It does depend on the context. Yeah, sure.
Said yes. They said absolutely. We will give you a week on our campus. We will give you unprecedented, unfiltered access to our facilities and to what is going on. So as you can see, guys, I am here. I am standing on the Blizzard campus in front of the famous orc statue, and I have been and met absolutely everybody. Let's go on this journey and find out what the real truth is. First of all, let's sit down with two of the big guns. You probably haven't seen these outside of major announcements and don't know who they are, but they are very, very, very big deals. First, we're going to sit down with Holly Longdale. Holly joined in 2020 to take over the Classic team. She has so much MMO experience, it's ridiculous. She spent nearly 10 years alone on EverQuest 2 getting their Classic game up and running. And she's now the vice president of all of World of Warcraft. With her, John Haidt. John's been in the game since 1993. He's worked on video game franchises you guys probably love, like God of War, Command & Conquer Red Alert. He literally, and I mean...
All right. Red Alert. I got it. All right. John's a real one. Understood.
Wrote the book on how to create video games. He was a professor for years and joined the World of Warcraft team in 2011.
All right.
He is now in charge of Warcraft. Not just World of Warcraft, all of Warcraft.
Yeah, this guy's pretty much, like if there's something wrong with any WoW game, it's his fault.
I couldn't miss the opportunity while I had these two here to find out how Classic came about and how it's probably influencing Dragonflight.
I mean, Classic seems to have been a runaway success. Like the meme of it being, you think you want it, but you don't.
Yeah.
And now it's like...
Oh, we want it.
We thought you didn't, but you did.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
I mean, how was that decision come to at the time? Like, what made the change there with that?
That we actually made Classic?
Yeah, that you were like, okay, they keep asking, we're going to do it.
Honestly, we didn't think it was going to be...
Possible, right?
Financially, even necessarily a great decision, as much as it was... Our fans are really asking for this. Some of our most devoted fans are asking for this. And it really was. When we say it was a love letter, it was a love letter. We're like, we justified it in the, hey, we do this. It's going to make our fans super happy.
So we do this. Finally, they'll shut the fuck up. We're sick of hearing about it. We're tired of this. We're tired of them bringing this up over and over and over. This is nobody even cares about the expansion. We're just going to fucking do it, and we're going to move on. Yeah, it's going to lose money. Let's just get it out of the way. Yep, understood.
And, we're going to learn a lot in the process. But, I mean, come on. How many games have gone back and recreated that? And I did that on God of War, right?
Yep.
God of War 1 and 2 and up-resed them. But the game's still live. It's like you can still play those areas in Modern. So going back and recreating that original experience, I don't think that's ever been done before.
I mean, RuneScape's tried. Old school RuneScape is, but they had to accept a lot of changes.
That's why.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here with doing our EverQuest Classic servers.
Yeah.
This WoW is a whole different
animal.
Yeah.
What challenges did you meet then that you weren't expecting? I guess.
With Classic?
Yeah, for sure.
Numbers, just vast.
Just the sheer amount of people playing it.
Numbers, and players never do what you expect them to, like ever.
So basically, the players are exactly, of course.
That's like every MMO lesson ever, right? Is the like ants that just crawl across the planet.
But that's
Players
one of the beauties
problem.
of it is, you know, we're re-exploring and relearning, you know, Classic. Even as much time and effort is spent in the archaeology of, you know, does it match what the original game was like? But when players interact with it now, the skill that they have, the knowledge, you know, that some of them have done it before.
Yeah.
All these like really interesting little edge cases and stuff that they find, and you know, it's a day-to-day, you know, wow, look what they figured out. It was based on.
Did you expect it to just be like everyone's going to play it for like a month? Was that your expectation?
Kind of. I mean, I remember our original estimates, and it was kind of funny because we totally underestimated.
I wonder if they're gonna give any numbers. I really want. I want to know numbers, John. Let's hear some fucking numbers. Even if they're proportional percentage numbers that don't actually reveal anything, I want numbers.
The number of realms we're going to have, and I can remember, you know, like arguing with one of our regions, you know, that was like very conservative and like, you know, we're only going to need this, and we'd flown out there and we're like, no, we think based on our estimates in North America, you're probably going to want to have more than that within, and you know, God bless the Classic team, but like literally within weeks they had to spin up 10 times our estimate.
Almost like the original WoW
to handle it.
It's almost like a recreate.
It's because Classic WoW, it was so big that it became bigger than WoW. It's like everybody in the gaming space knew about Classic WoW. It wasn't like a new WoW expansion or you know, like a new game coming out. It was like a massive fucking thing.
Back-end experience.
Except we had the technology this time. Then it was like, we don't have the hardware. What do we do? I don't know. Go up to fries.
Literally belt strapping things together. Plug it in. Go. But it's been. I'm curious what you guys have learned from that, from what the players are doing in Classic that's now coming into the retail game. Like you were like, yeah, we should bring that.
This is a great question.
You're seeing it, yeah. I mean, that's the exciting thing is Classic brought back these conversations about talent trees, like revamping talents. How much do you love spending your points and experimenting?
Isn't it crazy how like they finally, you know, Classic WoW came out and it's like the talent trees came out, and I feel like the talent trees in Dragonflight are majority positive. Most people have been like, they're pretty good. Like, I'm happy with my talent tree. I'm excited. So it's like,
your class, or if that was what your memory is, that's my memory of Classic or of Vanilla. And so the team recognized that. They're always taking the pulse too. It's like players really love that. And professions. I think the teams really wanted for a long time to be able to focus on professions as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm really curious to see what professions are going to look like in Dragonflight. I'll be honest, I am not convinced that they will be as good as Blizzard thinks they will. I think that this will be turned into a formulaic algorithm that players use in order to, you know, make these decisions on who's going to make what, who's going to get what, how professions are going to be farmed, etc. I don't think it's going to be that great, but we'll see what happens.
Even how we are looking at content, right? So more, you know, in Vanilla or Classic, there's the exploration factor. It felt less guided, and the team's taken that to heart too. And you'll see elements of that in Dragonflight as well. It's a really wonderful exploration about, you know, where are we now and where are we going to go in the future, and kind of taking stock and listening to the community. And it's pretty incredible to see it coming through in Dragonflight.
Yeah, I think the social interaction, you know,
I miss
Classic,
that so much.
You know, you had to, you know, just to get through stuff, you had to make friends, and we were all in this together. You know, I played in the beta, and I played, you know, WoW. I played for 18 years.
What's the biggest change you've seen in players? Because I talk about like what idyllic MMOs, you know, what would if I was creating an MMO, it looked like, and I focus so much on the people because I can't think of an MMO being anywhere what I would consider great without the people you play with. I think about my guild more than what's this feature, what's this content. But we're growing loud voice that I've seen across many MMOs now. We're talking to so many MMO companies. A lot of players who just want the solo experience. And their biggest fear is actually other people, which blows my mind because I was like, I love the people so.
As I've said, I think that WoW was like a stand apart game in 2004 because it provided a solo experience. WoW was a great solo experience. Like, my mom played WoW solo 95% of the time. I play WoW solo a lot. So, yeah, I think that they already have that.
Even the bad ones, because that's a moment, you know? I think about those moments with the bad people. And what's the biggest change you've seen in gamers in general?
I think you've actually identified one of the challenges that we face with World of Warcraft is we know that a lot of players just want to come in, have some fun, know that, you know, there's things for them to do, and not have the pressure of having to interact with other people.
Mm-hmm.
But then they want to, you know, and then when
I think that's a really good point. Yeah, interaction should not be mandatory. Like, making people interact with each other through like weird systems that you kind of force into the game that players have to interface with, this sucks. Yeah, interaction should be optional and should be taken enthusiastically.
they have that chance encounter, you know, where someone happens to be farming the same thing and you just got killed 3 times and, you know, okay, let's join in a group together. We did it. We killed it together. Awesome. That's cool. Or meeting, you know, that set of friends that you start running dungeons with, or you start doing a raid with, and enjoying some of that group content that we've created. Those are some of the best moments in the game.
Yep.
Like, I remember it was Christmas a few years back when we had the hive mind, you know, mount. It was this crazy set of things that you had to do.
Oh my god! I remember we did this on stream. This shit was fun. I think it was like me, McConnell, and like 3 other dudes. It was a good time.
Unlock it, and I did this with a completely random set of people.
Why,
you know, 4 people I didn't even know. We went through all of it. I had all the monocles. We got this thing, and we were all like high-fiving each other. And I I got to put them on my friends list. And I actually kept in contact with the one for a couple months after that.
Yeah.
But those moments are so
really
cool.
fun.
And I think, you know, we try to have experiences like that, you know, where you no pressure. You can play by yourself if you want to. And I think there's something actually kind of comforting knowing that while I'm wandering around doing my solo thing, you know, working on one of my alts or whatever,
you're surrounded by other people.
There's thousands of other people around there.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I think people like the idea of a shared space, but not necessarily a mandatory sharing of that space.
I can see them doing their thing. And I think that's a really fun part of the game. It reminds me that I'm not just doing this all by myself.
Like I said before, what does it mean for Azeroth to feel alive, you know, day to day, week to week, and ongoing? And how do we evolve that? And to me, you know, I geek out. We all geek out about all this stuff about how do we evolve? We are committed to WoW evolving and delivering more for players and being mindful of the community. So when you're talking about how gamers...
I think that's probably one of the biggest weaknesses that WoW's had in the past, like, ever since Legion, I would say, is that I don't think WoW has really evolved since Legion at all.
Change. We have people like you, people that we are a living, breathing community, not just in Azeroth, but outside it as well. And really, you know, advancing our thinking about what does it mean for all of us as a community around World of Warcraft. So we're thinking really big, you know, and then also, you know, what's going to bring players along, you know, week to week, month to month, and make sure that, you know, we're serving our community who want to live there.
This is why this trip is so important. Sitting down with these guys, finding out how Classic came about and how it's going to influence Dragonflight, so amazing. But one of the things I'm worried about with coming here is I actually don't know how everybody plays World of Warcraft. I think back to my day to say, from vanilla all the way up until the end, and the sheer amount of mandatory content that has been added to the game over the years has just grown exponentially, including several systems which are just infinite in time. Now, of course, mandatory is a subjective thing.
Bruh.
If you break it down, everything is optional. But if you wanted to...
Yo, we're about to get to Legion. You're about to get to Legion. Get ready for it.
Character wearing the
Here we
current
go.
gear, the latest legendaries, whatever it might be, your commitment to the game has massively increased. Even doing content
BFA is
that
even
perhaps
worse.
you don't like simply because you have to. Torghast would be a great example of that. But the thing is, I actually don't know whether people like doing that. Nobody does except them. So
People like doing things that they don't have to do a lot more than they like doing things that they do have to do. I think that Torghast would have been looked at much more positively if people didn't have to do it.
Sit down with
It's not
Ian
that
and
complicated.
try and find out how people spend their time in Azeroth. But I know how you guys spend your time, and that's by picking up a display. Display are proudly sponsoring this video so we could take all our equipment, pack up our stuff, and fly across the world in order to speak to Blizzard on your behalf. If you like this and you want to see more of this, especially check out part 2 of this video where we're going to be looking at how World of Warcraft is made.
By the way, if you guys get one of these, actually follow the directions. Yeah, like actually follow the directions to stick it to the wall. And don't just think, you know, you just throw it up there and it should be fine. It won't be fine. Yeah, won't be fine. Yeah, follow the directions, guys.
Then why not consider picking up a display?
And using our link down below, you can get up to a massive 44% off your display order.
And we have these amazing official World of Warcraft displays that you can pick up in time for Dragonflight as well. So if you're looking for some cool art that's very, very easy to put up, you can swap them around, you can have multiple of them. Why not consider display and help us out? And maybe we can go and visit some other people you'd like us to talk to as well. Now let's talk to Ian.
Yeah, the displays are good. I will agree. The displays are very nice. S-Fan actually got one of me and him done. It was like the classic WoW one, and I told him that like my dad liked the picture and he remembered it. And my dad had an extra display made. S-Fan had an extra display made, and I gave it to my dad, and he still has it up in his living room.
I mean, you still have so many different player types, right? I mean, I'm not sure how your metrics work, but one of the questions, because I think it's really tough when you're out there and you're not just a content creator, but you're anybody's. The vast majority is a horrible, horrific term that gets thrown around all the time in reference to World of Warcraft. This is what the vast majority likes. What do people actually do in the game? Because you know, we don't know.
I mean, everything. Honestly, I mean, I think that's one of the quirks of WoW. It's part of the magic of WoW. It's part of what makes designing for WoW really challenging at times. I think you could take a dozen people, all of whom would say WoW is their primary game. It's one of their favorite games. It's a game they play a ton. You could sit them around a table and have them talk about what they do in the game and why they like it. And it could sound like they're describing 12 different games or experiences that would be foreign to the others. It really is everything from the completionist solo collector to the casual PvPer who just queues Battlegrounds all weekend to the hardcore PvPer who wants to push high rating, to the Mythic Plus focus player, to the casual raider, to the hardcore raider, to everything in between. And
that's, I think, one of WoW's biggest strengths, and it always has been, is that they allow you to play the game in so many different ways. So, like, if you want to play a video game, you can log into WoW and decide what video game you want to play. That's, I think, one of the biggest positives with the game, and I think that MMOs that don't have that, and I think that really 2 MMOs that don't have that is, number one, Lost Ark doesn't have that very much, and neither does New World. There's like kind of one way of gaming, and that's about it, and maybe 2 ways with like Gathering, you could say, but overall, it's a one-size-fits-all situation. I think that WoW and Final Fantasy, especially WoW, I think does a great job at catering to so many different types of playstyles.
All the different Venn diagram overlaps, and all of those people are World of Warcraft players.
Yeah, it's like you get burnt out with doing one type of WoW content, and then like you go and do another content. Like, for example of this is like, I never played ESO, so I can't make an example on that. I played it like 2 days, so I never really played it. It's like, you know, earlier today, like I was doing Mythic Plus, we didn't clear the key, I was burned out, I was like, fuck, this sucks, I don't want to play this anymore. I didn't quit playing WoW, I just went and I did something different in WoW. And that's, I think, what makes an MMO successful, is that you can go and you can do one thing and then do something else.
And it's and I think the world is, again, as I said earlier, richer because it has all of them in it. But a challenge is, there is no majority, so to speak. It's a collection of many minorities, each of whom have different and sometimes competing interests. And I think that's part of the challenge when it comes to listening, addressing feedback. I think, often the two are a little bit conflated, where hearing feedback should mean, in the eyes of players, and understandably so, well, do what I say. I told you I don't like this. We told you we don't like this, and you didn't change it. Therefore, you're clearly not listening.
especially if that person believes they're a reasonable person. I'm a reasonable person, and I think you're incorrect. So,
and they are, and they are a reasonable person, and I think it's totally reasonable to want to advocate for the game that you want to play and the play style that you.
I think that makes sense. I think the frustration that players have with WoW is whenever things that were advocated for in alpha actually do happen, but it takes an hour, or sorry, not an hour, an entire year for them to happen. It takes like 2 major content patches for covenants to be changed. It takes 1 major content patch or 3 major content patches for legendaries to be changed. So I do think that, like, you're definitely right. Like, Ian's definitely right about saying, like, just because we hear feedback doesn't mean we agree with it. Just because we agree with the feedback doesn't mean that we need to solve it in the same way that you think that we should solve it. And I think that's a good point. Like, he brings up a very, very good point here, is that it's like, this is a Jeff Kaplan quote, where it's like, you can't rely on players to tell you what the solution is, but you can sure as hell rely on them to tell you if there's a problem. And I think this is an example of that.
Favor. And it's our job to take everybody's concerns into account. It's not a player's concern to take other people's happiness into their account when playing a game. They just want what's going to make it the most fun for them. Mm-hmm. And so, I think the challenge comes where sometimes those desires are directly conflicting. Where,
Good example.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
Thank God you're asking for an example, because I think that for a lot of these examples, there are not that many of these. Like, there are maybe some examples, but in general, I think that one of the main frustrating things is that whenever Blizzard does not make a change or doesn't fix something until way later.
Rewards are a clear case.
I'd love to get into this with you.
Yeah, right? It's basically the people who want to do a thing and don't see any value in it and want it to be more rewarding, versus the people who don't want to be forced to do the thing and want it to stay not rewarding at all. Or, should PvE gear have any place in PvP, or vice versa? And to some extent,
that's actually a good example. That is unironically a very good example. Okay. Yep, true.
Like, we can continue to separate out the ecosystems to solve these problems. We can say there's no crossover whatsoever, and you're basically playing a completely different game if you're doing this activity versus that activity. Or to the extent that there's crossover, there's going to be some people who would prefer it weren't that way.
For sure, because, I mean, one of the most common things, and I'm guilty of this, and what I can also honestly say after now we're here is, I definitely got to the point where I was so immersed in it and not happy that I definitely went overboard with where I was, which I think is the place you end up with because of a business relation. It's like, ordinarily I just put the game down. I don't know whether it's an internal pressure, and I kind of think this goes back all the way to Nax Ramitz, the original one, where it's like, we've invested time and money into this content.
Yeah, you've got to finish it off.
But if we don't make them go, they're not going to go. And that's something that's a very real thing.
Oh, that's a good point. So he's saying, like, if you don't make something mandatory, do you worry that people won't do it?
I think it is a real thing. I think make is maybe too strong a word. But if we don't incentivize it, if we don't make it feel like you are progressing in some way as a result of it, then yeah, people probably won't do it. But I think.
What about the Mage Tower? I think the Mage Tower was extremely popular.
If we made a zone full of awesome quests that literally offered no rewards, as a hypothetical, right? No experience, no gold, no items, nothing at all, but it's really cool content, most people wouldn't touch it. People who did might touch it once. And that's not to say that, the people who would do it if you're doing it to level, who would do it if you're doing it to get a professional recipe, to whatever, are going to dislike it as a result. But at the end of the day, it is a game that, as part of just the core RPG progression, you have a lot of goals, you're making your numbers go up, you're trying to overcome challenges, you're choosing how to spend your often limited time these days wisely, and you're going to spend that time doing things that are getting you closer to your goals. Maybe, like, at the end of an expansion when you have no more other goals left, you might go back and chase cosmetics or do things that, you haven't had a chance to just for completionist's sake. But those feel like lost opportunities when there's something out there that has potential that's just underutilized.
Yeah, so where do you draw the line?
Yeah, I think that's sometimes what happens is that people will not prioritize doing content if it's not mandatory, but I think that it's better to have content be optional in most circumstances. Like, especially different types of, like, systems. And I think also, like, the content that's the worst whenever it's non-pseudo-optional. What I mean by that is, like, yeah, you cannot do it, but your character is at a disadvantage if you don't do it. So it's like, oh, everything's optional. Yeah, playing the game's optional. But, like, if you want to maintain your character at a high level, you have to do this regularly. I think it's whenever it is regular. So, like, it would be one thing if you had to get the Torghast level 8, and then that was it. You beat layer 8, and then you can craft legendaries for free. But it's the fact that you have to do it every week. So it's like these mandatory fun activities that you have to do all of the time. Rather than things like Suramar, for example, you only really had to do that once on your main character. It's not like you had to do a Suramar, quest line every single week. You had to do the same quest line or something like that. There were new ones, and then after you were done, it was over. Yeah, and on every character, too. Yeah, that's also another issue.
Then incentivizing it via power. So, it's Torghast throwing the legendary requirement into there.
Yeah. Somebody made a great analogy and example is that the essence tiers in BFA, I think, were good because of this. As soon as you met that benchmark and you unlocked it, you were done. You beat the game. It's over. You have it, it's yours, and that's all there is to it.
This gives you a cool mount. Do you see, like...
And that's good.
Do you see a distinct difference in participation? Because it's like, oh, they'll just look at it. And I guess a good example of this would actually be challenge modes. And I don't know if you know the participation rates there, which were purely cosmetic.
Bro, these guys could clear it in like 3 minutes. He can show the entire video of them clearing this dungeon. I watched every single one of these. These guys were fucking insane.
Rewards, right? That's all that challenge modes gave you, was just a transmog.
Yeah,
and
watch
did that come across as perhaps a failure? Because not enough people did it?
I don't think challenge modes were a failure, no. Their participation was overall quite low. It got a bit better. I want to say, if I remember, towards the end of Mists, I think we added a decent chunk of Valor for doing challenge mode runs that helped, it helped justify it to people who were just looking to cap their Valor for the week. They could at least work towards something else at the same time. But it wasn't seen as a failure because I think it also, as someone who worked very directly on challenge modes, 10 years ago, it wasn't 30 people laboring to make this thing. It was, let's try an extra difficulty. Let's add an extra overlay on the content we're already making. And for the people who got a lot of value out of it, a lot of enjoyment out of it, that felt well worth what we put into it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But I think, yeah, you're correct. When we look at a major expansion feature like a Torghast, if that were only used by as many people as did Mist challenge modes, that would have been seen as a significant failure. It's like we put a ton of time, design resources, engineering, art, iteration into this. If only 8% of our players did it, well then we should have just put those resources into something else that 90% of our players were going to do, because we would have made more of our players happy. At the end of the day, like, that's the challenge we're trying to solve.
I think that those challenges becomes more okay that something like that is only participated in with like 8% of the population, because whenever you only have 8% of the population to do something inside of one expansion, that's one thing. But for example, you can have something like pet battles, or you can have something like the Mage Tower is now, that is evergreen content. And I think that having content that is like outdated after the expansion that almost nobody participated in, I think that, yes, I would agree with Ian, that's bad. But I think that the longer that content is relevant and able to be participated in by players makes it more okay if less people participate in it. Because I don't think that, like, this is a one-to-one correlation that, like, the more people do something, the better it is. Like, for example, just because something has a lot of participation, that does not necessarily mean that players enjoy doing it. I think Torghast is a great example of that. Garrisons. Everybody had garrisons. Not a lot of people liked it.
Have a finite team, even as we grow, even as we hire. We have this many, person hours of work that can be done this year. How do we deploy those? How do we allocate those in the way that's going to make the most fun for the most players?
Well, one of the things with Dragonflight that's changing is because obviously part of what I would consider the failure of Torghast is that people felt. I know that one of the reasons I stopped playing was I'd log on to my alt, and it was like, okay, I kind of need to farm a legendary, I kind of need to conduit.
One of the reasons I didn't like Torghast is I had to backtrack. I fucking hate backtracking. I hate going back and then there's another little tunnel over here. You've got to go over there. Man, I want to have a straight fucking shot. You go through all the mobs, you kill all the bosses. That's why the Jailer's Gauntlet was good. I fucking hate backtracking. And then you have like these two fucking contradictory things. You have the completion percentage for time that it takes and the completion percentage for how many mobs you kill. So it's like, okay, I have to kill a lot of mobs, but I also want to make it do really fast. So it's like if you have to backtrack a lot, you feel like you're getting fucked. And so that's why it felt bad. Like if Torghast was like a straight shot, like some of the levels are, it's way more fun. And whenever I do the levels that are straight shots, I have more fun. It's better.
It's like I need to do this. And as somebody, as I'm sure you're aware, I was a huge champion of Torghast. Like I had a great interview with Morgan.
So was I.
About Torghast, and then a lot of it changed. And I was like, this is just killing my soul.
I don't think that a lot of Torghast really changed. I think that the problem really is that a lot of Torghast didn't change. It didn't get innovated enough, and I think that they only really started innovating on it with like the Jailer's Gauntlet, which was really cool, and then the Infinite Corridor, Creeping Corridor, whatever it was, that was really cool too, but that was like a one-and-done type thing. And yeah, I do think Torghast was good. Absolutely. But you just need to make it better over time. I do think that people would view Torghast as a good system and enjoy it more if they didn't have to do it. I think having to do it is what made people not like it.
You know, it made me very unhappy. It's like, where do you then... Is that just a case of looking at alt friendliness for that?
Yeah, actually, Nixie brings up a really good point, and I totally agree with it. In my opinion, the best iteration of Torghast was the window of time where you were progressing the talent tree with talent knowledge, or with tower knowledge, and the new 5-star system. Yeah, like right whenever you were first initially getting your new levels. Because like that's whenever a roguelite is fun. Is whenever you have a roguelike, excuse me, not roguelite. A roguelike is fun is whenever you're like building up your power and you're getting better stuff and you're able to like, you know, reach heights that you weren't able to before. You get the new unlock, you can do something. Yeah, to me, I think that was badass.
Or is this in Dragonflight where you actually have completely smashed this out of the park?
It's there's a few pieces to that. I think even aside from alt friendliness, which was clearly an issue there, I think that the mandatory weekly loop, the feeling that you have to do this basically every week, essentially forever. Yep. And if you miss a week, you're falling behind. And if you put it off, you know, I think that's something that got us thinking a lot about just the player psychology of how people approach mandatory things with expiration date, perceived chores, like that feeling of maybe it's Monday or I guess Tuesday if you're in Europe.
Yeah, and you feel like you have to do it. Like, you know, you've got to stay up late, and it's like, oh, fuck, I didn't do Torghast. I have to do Torghast today.
And
Wednesday.
Sorry, no, the last day of the week is what I'm talking about.
Oh,
so
okay,
Tuesday,
okay.
if you're in
Tuesday,
Europe,
all right.
You had a long day at work, then you went out for dinner with your friends, with your loved ones, whatever. You come home, you're exhausted, and you realize, like, oh, crap, I haven't done my Torghast run
Been
for
there
the
many
week.
times.
Exactly.
The worst game for this is Lost Ark.
Does that make you feel good about World of Warcraft in that moment?
No.
Absolutely not. And so, why are we doing
Yeah, you either do something you don't want to do, or you lose.
That to people, and there's a lot of ways around that. There's, you know, it's catch-up mechanisms, so that, you know, if you knew that if you missed it this week, you could just catch up and do 2 next week or whatever. Suddenly, the psychology is very different.
Yeah.
If there's more flexibility and, you know, you can do multiple weeks in a row, or if there's just less, if it's less of an exclusive reward that only comes from this one source. Now suddenly it's fine. Yeah, you're tired tonight. You had fun doing other things. You don't have to log in when you don't want to. But in any case, getting back to Torghast, I think, yeah, it was gameplay that was kind of forced to overstay its welcome in a lot of ways because it became something that you had to keep doing for as long as people did.
Totally agree.
Something that we've tried to pivot to, and I know you mentioned you didn't personally jump in and do Zareth Mortis.
No.
But part of how we approached the activities there, the cipher system, the reputations, the outdoor loop, was basically we're going to give you a couple of weeks of the first couple of weeks. We're going to say, here's frankly a carrot that everyone's going to want. You want to get your second legendary. You want the ability to craft your Unity legendary. That's the second one that you can equip. Doing that's going to take you a couple of weeks of checking out the content. Past that, everything is 100% optional, but you've seen it all. And you can decide whether you like it or not. And if you like it, you've gotten a taste and you can keep going. And if you don't, cool, just never go back. You can ignore it and focus on Mythic Plus, raids, whatever else.
I think Zereth Mortis was good. Yeah, Zereth Mortis was actually a good zone. The only part about Zereth Mortis that I legitimately did not like was farming Genesis motes. I think farming Genesis motes was boring, mind-numbing, pointless, bad design. I don't know who the fuck thought this was a good idea. Everything else, however, very good.
It's a little bit of a middle ground between there being no mandatory power at all, where a lot of people who might have enjoyed the content will never even give it a chance because they're like, well, why am I going to do that? It doesn't give me anything. Or obviously the opposite end of the spectrum where it just becomes an endless thing that you have to keep doing.
I don't have a problem with like new content getting added into the game and then having to do it. But again, the reason why players were okay with Zereth Mortis and having that unlock your second legendary is because they didn't have to do it every week. It's not like you had to, okay, you have to complete the Bolvar weekly quest in order for your second legendary to be active this week. No, you just do it once and then it's over.
You've taken a pretty hard stance at this. From my playtesting of Dragonflight, this has now become almost a core value of Blizzard going forward, or seemingly, but obviously we're here to talk about it today, is like just no more of that. No more mandatory stuff. And is there like an internal fear then? Is like
I feel like there's always going to be mandatory stuff, but I think that the mandatory fun in Legion, BFA, and Shadowlands, and I think that it was less in Shadowlands. It was a lot less in Shadowlands compared to BFA. It was a huge improvement. But I think that it was just way too much. Like I think that's why people miss WoD. That's why people say that they liked WoD more than Shadowlands or BFA, is because they didn't have to log on and play the game like a mandatory 8 hours a week.
Are we making stuff now that people aren't going to check out? And are we actually okay with that? Because a lot of games now are going with a more drop-in, drop-out style, and they're still maintaining a sub. Is that something... I mean, this is a risky move you're making in Dragonflight internally.
I think... So, the concept of mandatory, I do think only applies to a certain portion of the player base. I think it's certainly, a high-end competitive players, if there's any advantage that they can get, they have to get it.
Yeah.
Well understood. But I think some of what we're also moving away from that lets us, like systems like Renown, their Outdoor World Loop, they have powerful rewards from them. You can make, this profession crafting reagents at the end of a Renown tracks that will let you make 402 plus gear that is heroic raid quality. There are other, profession recipes and other things that people will look at and want. But the Mythic Raider who's looking to, push for the Hall of Fame isn't going to look at any of those things and say,
yeah, this is totally fine, by the way. I have no issue with Renown. Like, people that are complaining about, who gives a fuck? Magic-bound chests? What is this? Like, what's the next one?
Oh, no, this stuff I need from this that I...
Researching and Comfort, Ancient Waygate? Who the fuck cares? Like, I'm sorry, this is like, I don't get, who cares about, why are you getting upset about it? Gives a fuck.
Can't get elsewhere, therefore I have to do it.
Bonus supplies.
And some of that is just a product.
Oh, guys, did you see that last one? Oh, no. Wait a second. You can get a tabard? Oh, my God. FOMO is out of control. Explosive archaeology? I need that to raid. Another Ancient Waygate?
A product of moving away from the auxiliaries, so-called borrowed power alternate advancement systems that we had in the last few expansions. Item level is kind of the simple universal reward. Item level is power, but it's fungible. You can get it from other sources, and it's only as valuable as how it compares to the other stuff you have access to, as opposed to artifact power, essences for your Heart of Azeroth, conduits, all those other things, where it didn't matter how high your eye level was from other content, you had to do this because it was additive.
Mm-hmm. Yes. But they were great things, though. Like, it was always the acquisition that was the problem. Like, the actual result was great. I just don't want to farm 50,000 honor in Battlegrounds, That, like, the actual system itself. And
it used to be 100, too. Then they nerfed it.
Azerite Armor in particular is one that I'm deeply upset about. Because I genuinely thought item level is something, and again, it's personal bias, I have no issue with Mr. Does his World Quest having the same item level as Mythic Raider. But Azerite Armor seemed to perhaps open the door to be like, well, we can tailor this now to world questing and your experience.
We can do it for PvP. We can do it for Mythic Plus, make 5 mana more fun.
Well, they did have, to be fair, they did have, you know, like there was like that secondary stat corruption bonus for Azerite gear that came out of Nilotha. There was like a PvP Azerite gear that you got out of your box. Like there was some of this.
Things. It didn't go that way, unfortunately. You know, it was kind of the set bonuses that are out there. But now you are upping the rewards from Mythic Plus, giving those guys natural appeasing people like JB, so he can actually stop raiding for the most part. And is that something that's also changing long term, or is there still an idea of if you're not raiding or doing high Mythic Plus or high in PvP, you should still be a bit lower?
I think that you should have to do hard content to get good gear. I do not think that this is a positive that somebody who does not play the game or does world quests needs to. You don't need mythic raid gear. Because if you do, then why would somebody mythic raid? I guarantee you guys, you take gear out of mythic raiding dies.
I mean, I think there's definitely a little bit of still a spectrum there. Eye level, you know, is if you want 415, 421 type gear in Dragonflight, you're going to need to do high-end PvP, high-end raiding, high-end Mythic Plus. We do want outdoor play and certainly professions to be able to push farther into that track than they ever have before.
I think that's a great thing. I remember back in Mists of Pandaria, because like the person that I use as a benchmark for this was the way that my mom played the game. Is that in Burning Crusade, she actually had pretty good gear because she could craft a bunch of the gear, she could buy BOEs, and then even in Mists of Pandaria, she had full 535 gear because she was able to use the Burdens of Eternity on her gear in Timeless Isle. So, like, giving players that are solo players and casual players a means of progression, I think is very important and very good. You need to give those players progression because I don't like this mindset that like, oh, casual players don't care about gear. That's so stupid. Casual players love gear. They probably care about it in some cases more than raiders do because they need the gear to be able to do the content because their gear sucks otherwise. So yeah, of 100% you need to give casual players gear that they can progress and work towards and get over time. And that gear, the end result of that gear being comparable with like normal or maybe heroic level raid gear that like takes way longer to get, I don't think that's a bad thing. I really don't think so. But I do think that for like top tier item level, you should be able to get top tier item level from 3 different things. Mythic raiding, Mythic Plus, and Arena. Oh, rated PvP. Like solo shuffle RBGs are also included in that. That's it.
I think at times in the past it's felt like if you were a solo player, well, you kind of capped out at maybe you could get a couple of normal modes.
And I also, sorry, I keep pausing because I keep having other things I want to think about. I don't think it's a big deal if like a profession can craft like 2 or 3 really good items. What I mean is like getting decked out. I think it's fine if like a profession or like reputation or some sort of like farming thing gives you like 1 or 2 pieces of bis. Yeah, who cares? But like getting fully bissed out, you should have to actually do the hard content. Yeah, like Lionheart Helm. Yeah, like you get Lionheart Helm, that's great. Well, what the fuck are you going to do about your necklace? You going to get Band of Acuria? You got to fucking raid.
The raid pieces, and otherwise you were like 30 eye levels behind the Mythic Raider. That's, I think, too large a gap, and something we'd like to close. And that's, you know, really speaking, getting back to some of the earlier conversation about player groups and silent majorities and so forth. You know, we do feel like we have underserved the just solo outdoor focused player who chooses to spend tons and tons of time in World of Warcraft over the years. And
I think that's completely true. And I think that's, remember what I was telling you guys about how I think WoW loses people in the middle 80%, where they keep the bottom 10% and the top 10% of players happy, but they lose people in the middle 80%. I think that is what really happened. Is that those are the people that moved over to Final Fantasy. Those are the people that stopped playing. I know, like, my mom stopped playing the game in BFA because she said, I farmed fucking flying in WoD. I farmed it again in Legion, and you took it away from me the 3rd time. Nope. I'm done. And that was it. So, yeah, and like for her, there was no real progression that she could have in the game. It just wasn't meaningful. It didn't matter. So she quit.
They care about progression too.
Yep.
And I think it's often inaccurate to just assume, oh, well, because you're not trying to push high keys, why do you even need item level?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, people want the number to go up.
Speaking to Ian this time really opened my eyes.
I hope that also was an insight that they got out of Classic WoW, is that even casuals would like min-max getting a blue item in Classic WoW. Everybody loves to get better gear. If you don't like getting better gear, you're probably not playing WoW.
To some things, and probably something that you guys have been guilty of as much as me. Why don't the devs listen to us? I spent months, years of my life shouting from the rooftops about things that I considered to be obvious problems, and in many cases did turn out to be.
That's exactly right. See, I have no problem with the things like, okay, Blizzard thinks LFR is good, I think LFR sucks. This is a disagreement, okay? That's fine. But holy fuck, why did it take so long to get rid of conduit energy? Why did Azerite gear still require a bunch of gold to reset the talents? Why did this happen?
So why is that not getting back to them? Well, it turns out it is. A lot more than you guys probably realize. I spent the entire week with the communications team. Those were the guys who were guiding us around, and they were absolutely incredible. But one of the things they really stressed to us is how much, on a weekly basis, they gather as much information as possible from the community, reading forums, subreddits, everything, watching videos, and feed that back directly to the people in charge. Some of you might scoff that no, they don't, but to clarify this...
I think that they do. I just don't think that they act on it fast enough. I think that they absolutely... It's not that they don't know it's a problem. I think that they know it's a problem and they put it in because it's a problem. That's what makes me annoyed. It makes me mad. It makes me paranoid. And this is what I was worried about with Dragonflight, is like systems that get put into the game that are intentionally dysfunctional to be fixed later for content patches.
We spoke to Josh Allen, aka Law. He was with Blizzard for 9 years on the communication team itself, has no reason to lie, and the only reason he left Blizzard was because such a large advancement in his career came up elsewhere.
Well, that's one thing we learned from the current community manager team is like, I was like, what is your day-to-day job then? And they were like, well, we get like the patch notes and we sift through those for things that are relevant because a lot of them are like bullshit data side things that nobody cares about. And then we put them out to the public. But another part of it is we basically read forums a lot and we gather all that feedback and then we present that to the relevant people to say, this is the kind of community feel right now. Mm-hmm. Did you feel like you had to filter that for like what's relevant, what's not?
Yeah, I mean, that was, so there was a significant portion.
Have your agent bag, then no slot at all. Okay.
Of my time at Blizzard where developer communications was my job. And then my job got reconfigured into being more influencer focused and everyone was like, why does Lore hate us now? He doesn't talk on the forums anymore. I'm like, well, yes, that's because it's not my job anymore.
Yeah. I had multiple interactions with Lore. Every single one of them was positive. I have nothing but good things to say about Lore.
No longer doing that specific task. There are other people doing that task. Go listen to them. Yeah, there was a lot of that general job and position is not even so much filtering as, I guess, distilling is how I would put it.
Make sure it goes to the right place.
Yeah, make sure it goes to the right place. Make sure that, because a lot of times people will say one thing and what they actually mean is kind of something else. Like, they still mean what they say, obviously, but...
Yeah, people want something, but they need something else. Yeah, sure, of course that makes sense.
If it's like, wow, I really hate... like Torghast was a great example where people were like, they really, really loved Torghast in early beta.
So, yeah.
And then when it came out, they were like, wow, I hate Torghast so much. And
I will also argue that I think Torghast on beta sucked. Like, whenever I go back and I look at it again, I think it sucked. The thing is, like, you went from, like, level 25 to 72. I remember this. And by the time that you were level 30 or level 35, every other level did not matter. Because you were already so powerful, you would never encounter a challenge that you couldn't overcome. You would never lose. So, like, if you didn't lose in the first, like, 5 or 10 levels, you'll never lose. It's bad design.
And the takeaway from that was, okay, what changed? And what changed was rewards were added to it. And so then it became a
both,
task.
right? They took rewards out because it had gear and stuff in it originally.
It's also people were not able to get they were not able to get so many powers in Torghast that their character became like a Goku fan fiction. So that's a big reason.
They got silly. They took all that out and then they just made you do it for legendaries, which was a complete like 180 on what it originally was.
That's what I mean, though. Is like it's the sort of thing where if Torghast had just remained as like a fun thing that you could go do when you felt like it, I think a lot of people would have enjoyed it because they didn't feel obligated to do it. But as soon as you add that obligation, that was the point where it became a chore for people, and it became Torghast at that point.
True.
And so that was the sort of thing that like we would look at that sort of feedback and we'd be like, okay, yes, everyone's saying they don't like Torghast, but the majority of the reason we can tell from reading all these different things, and like obviously there's a variety of opinions as well, so it's always a matter of like what are the biggest pain points to be discovered, because like occasionally there were some people just like, I don't like the way the Ghost Boys look. I'm like, okay, well, that's valid opinion. You're allowed to not like the Ghosty Boys, but that's not what I'm going to take to the development team as like a priority issue that needs fixing.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean by
I do think that a meta level that Torghast is visually non-diverse, I think is relevant. I think that like you have the red and black and gray, and then you also have black and gray.
Like sometimes people are saying, they just say they hate something.
Yes.
And you have to spend some time figuring out, okay, why do they hate this?
Yeah.
What about it is
I mean,
the
it's no
actual
different
problem?
than YouTube comments. It's like, I fucking hate the sound of his voice. Okay, do you hate my accent? Do you hate the microphone I'm using?
Yeah.
Am I too loud? Am I not normalized properly? Like, trying to figure it out, or is it just, you just hate the sound of my voice?
It's actually your face. So
yeah.
There's plenty of people that don't like somebody because of what they're saying, and then they make it out like it's something else.
Which is odd because they specifically said my voice. But now I see in the mirror, it's probably that. But most of the feedback does get back to the guys, to the developers, which, obviously one of the biggest complaints in the WoW community is, like, they're not listening to us. I've been bitching about this nobody knows better than me is how much I bitched about some of the things in Shadowlands.
Yeah, why does it take so long?
But they do generally get most of the stuff there, which is surprising when you find out. It's like, yeah, they do. They kind of do.
Yeah, if people are, especially once a point becomes like, well, everyone knows that no one likes this thing. It's like, well, yes, everyone also includes the development team by this point. You can be fairly confident in that. And a lot of times, then the job actually, it gets interesting because a lot of times then the job becomes, okay, what are the other things? Because everyone's talking about this one thing that's really upsetting everyone right now. I don't need to tell the development team for the 30th time that people want to be able to switch between covenants. Like, they know that. I don't need to tell them that again.
Yeah.
So what are the other topics that are going on in the community that they're not aware of because everyone's so busy focused talking about this thing? And so making sure that those other bits of feedback and those other smaller conversations still make it to the development team. And that's not like trying to like distract them from the more important conversation or anything.
Well, we need to talk about right now, Blizzard, you watching this? You say you watch a lot of the videos? All right, listen to this shit, okay? Why the fuck do I have to go on a rogue to go kill a rare and Ardenweald to get a dagger? Why can't it just drop for my warrior? Why are there class and specialization specific loot tables for rare spawns in the open world? Why the fuck is it that it took me 150 fucking boxes, probably 200 boxes of Necro Ray eggs? I still don't have one. And I need 3. You talk about fucking Mists of Pandaria. What about Shadowlands? Fix those mounts. There's a lot of those things that could be a lot better.
It's just that work doesn't need to be done. But yeah, like, so a lot of time there's been cases in the past where it's like, okay, we like the team would learn about what the features were in the upcoming expansion, and I would be like, okay, that feature is the one everyone's going to hate. Like, I can tell already what's going on here is...
You've got to remember, Lore used to be a content creator. So it's like, yeah, he knows. He's like, okay, yep, people are going to not like this one. Yep, absolutely.
People are going to be very upset about this.
So like me with Covenants. I mean, I knew in 2 minutes it was like, this is a bad idea.
Yeah. Everybody knew.
Yeah, Covenants was a weird one just because I did not fully understand what it was for a while. Because, like, imagine... Covenants ended up being a pretty convoluted, especially with, like, you add in soulbinds and everything as well.
Yeah,
ended up being a pretty complicated and convoluted system. imagine if none of that work had been done yet and someone was just trying to vaguely describe what it was going to be to you. That was the state that I was receiving this information in. So I was like,
that makes sense.
I don't understand it yet.
At BlizzCon, they were announced, and we were like, we all fill in the gaps ourselves.
Yeah.
Right, that's what happens. And I came up with a really thorough RPG storytelling thing and all this, and like, I was like, these are going to be awesome.
That's one of my favorite like pitfalls that I try to warn people about with like every job that I've had and every announcement that I've been a part of is like, please be sure you're ready to talk about something in a complete sense before you start talking about it. Because if you just throw out like a vague idea of like, here's what this is going to be, we have this idea to build something that's kind of like this, they will fill in the blanks.
Like whenever we had the shipyard in Wide, and I was like, God damn, we're going to be sailing around in a ship. Man. Yeah. Island expedition. So we're going to sail the different islands? Bro, it's crazy. What the fuck? That's cool. Oh my god, there's Kultiris and they got a bunch of boats. I could put everything together here. Yeah, we're going to get our own boat. We're going to sail around. Oh my god, it's going to be awesome.
And they will either,
Warfront.
if they're feeling negative, they will fill in the blanks with all negative things about how this is going to be the worst thing that they've ever experienced.
Absolutely.
And thus they will hate your thing before you've even made it.
Yep.
Or they will build it up to be this amazing, like huge, groundbreaking thing like Island Expeditions. This happened with Island Expeditions in BFA, where everyone was like, oh my god, we're going to go to all these islands, and it's going to be like this really cool, like, PvE, but kind of PvP-ish sort of thing, and that's going to be great, and we're unearthing these artifacts, and we're finding all this cool stuff.
Exactly.
And they're like, wait, this is just
True.
a thing that you queue for that's like...
It gives you artifact power really quick. It's
just scenarios again? Like...
Yeah, kind of. And they've sold that as... I think Garrisons is probably the worst situation ever, because Garrisons, they're like, you're going to get to build it.
Like...
Yeah, kind of. And they've sold that as... I think Garrisons is probably the worst situation ever, because...
Just... There it is. All right, well, yeah, it pretty much settles it.
Garrisons, the worst ever. Like, you're going to get to build it, and immediately the impression you get is, I'm going to get to customize this shit. I'm going to, like, as an old school classic raider, I'm going to have like Onyxia and Nefarian's heads like facing each other, and then I'm going to be able to have the tail around the building. You know, I'm going to customize it. And then when we got it, it was like, well, somebody has a stables here and someone has a stables here. And that's kind of the limit of your customization that you're going to get.
Yeah, that's also why I think it's important to like have started building something before you start talking about it too much. Like, just the nature of software and game development, especially at on a team the size of the World of Warcraft team, means that until you've built most of it, you kind of don't know what it is yet.
So now we know. Our feedback on streams, forums, YouTube, whatever, it all gets back to the devs on a pretty much weekly basis. And we're going to hear far more from Josh in his own interview we'll be uploading a little bit after this goes out. I found out why things don't change, because you guys probably have the same question.
All right, let's fucking hear it. I'm ready. Yeah, why the fuck did it take a year? Here we go.
We're moaning about it. We're complaining about it. Why is this feature not being iterated on, developed in some way? Suggestions we're putting forward not happening. This is when I learned about modular design. Modular design is a system that's been in place for a really long time and is going to be changing. In order to find out more about this idea, we're not only going to sit down with Ian again, but we're going to sit down with Tina Wang, who's the Associate Art Director of World of Warcraft, and Morgan Day, the Associate Game Director.
I'm sorry, but any sort of a design pipeline explanation for why something takes a year will not be sufficient to me. Yeah, this will not be sufficient. We'll listen and hear this out, but okay.
Over the years, you guys have fell into a habit of almost cannibalizing your own game with every patch.
Yeah.
Which felt very wasteful.
Bad.
Like, I can't imagine the R&D that went into some of these systems. Dungeons, I mean, if you go back to Kata, it was like, in Wrath, every time the TOC came out, right, every other dungeon's irrelevant now. No point in doing it. And the same with raids, and obviously there's arguments 2 and 4 linear raids. But Season 4, you've started to maybe consider, we've actually seen this
is a great question,
happen in a number of other MMOs recently, certainly the ones that are a decade plus, where they're like, we have a wealth of content that we've created over these years, and we've just left it. And there definitely seems to have been a lack of iteration in Blizzard. Like Garrisons. Garrisons are remembered not fondly, unfortunately, But the premise is really good. It's just people like maybe a more cosmetic style than a practical solution. Warfronts. Yeah. How excited was the player base when Warfronts were announced?
I was excited.
And unfortunately, it didn't go that way. Same with Island Expeditions. You know, we all watched the Sneaky Pete promise, and you're going to hate these guys, and they're going to interfere with you and stuff. And then part of the mandatory element was there. But
well, I remember that was another example, right? Remember whenever y'all do Island Expeditions and you get the Sneaky Pete team, it was easy, but then you get that one team where they didn't have a healer and it was like 2 Blood Death Knights and like a fucking Elemental Shaman, and they would just like kill you instantaneously. And it's like every other team was 1,200 rating and these guys were like 2,400. Yeah, that was so fucking annoying.
We can reel a list off here of huge systems, huge resources that are brought into the game, which have been left to like, okay, and class halls I would definitely put in here, which feel like such a waste.
Yeah, they're not even.
And what is the thoughts there now for like over the next few years is to change that instead of reinventing the wheel every expansion?
Yeah, I think, I mean, so there's a couple of pieces to that. Some of that is definitely the move away from, you know, expansion specific systems that also would turn into borrowed whatever because they were going to go away, back to evergreen improvements. I think broadly speaking,
great.
I think you could almost carve out 3 eras of World of Warcraft philosophy and development.
WoW to Wrath, Cataclysm to Mists of Pandaria, or till WoD, and then Legion onward.
I would say that the first era was from Classic all the way through Mists of Pandaria, where every expansion was adding extra layers, extra systems, new professions, new races, new classes, new things. And then we kind of reached, as we were coming up on almost 10 years at that point, a turning point, arguably a little bit of a crisis, as we were coming off like 2 expansions in a row. We'd have
the reason why this was a turning point is because of Raw Din. So basically, I think that in a 32-bit system, the largest integer that can be processed is 2.1 billion something. Or 2.2 billion. It's 2 point something billion. 2.147 billion. Raw Din had a mechanic that increased his health in Throne of Thunder. And his health would get increased, but because the system could not process a number that high, his health would then go back down and it would bug out. And that's why Garrosh in Siege of Orgrimmar has so many different phases. It's so they can get around that integer cap.
Like 12 to 13 month final tiers, and just looking at like this infinite scalability, like this infinite exponential growth of like what it takes to make an expansion, both in terms of development, but also player-facing complexity of like how many systems do we have now? How just complicated is the game becoming? We're going to keep running this game for years and years and decades to come.
And this is what I'm saying. Like, I said the same shit. Like, everybody said Mists of Pandaria was so good, and I think that if you play WoW all the time and you were a serious WoW player, you probably thought that. But the game was way too fucking complex. Way too complex. And this is coming from somebody who got, like, fucking rank 1 parses in Mists of Pandaria. I was top fucking DPS, I was top achievement points, and I was top item level. On my server in Mists of Pandaria, I didn't have a job. It was way too fucking complex.
Can we really just keep adding new permanent systems every couple of years forever? No. And so I think, you know, that's what led to some of the
scaling
class
back.
pruning philosophy and going into Warlords. It's what led it to kind of pulling back in some areas, but also the idea that we needed to be able to make things that were not permanent, that we could go deeper, focus them on a single expansion, have them be the hallmark of that expansion, but they weren't going to add to the ongoing complexity. That was, and so I think that was going into Warlords. And I think, as you mentioned, there were definitely some missteps with the garrisons.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, moving ahead into Legion, it was like, well, okay, obviously we don't want something that pulls you out of the world. The class hall in some loose ways with the mission table with some of its trappings and custom.
Oh, that was great. I actually think the integration of the class order hall and like the artifact weapons into the old world in Azeroth was perfect. I thought it was amazing. Everything they did about that was good.
Was a little bit of a successor to the garrison system. We wanted it to be a social space where you'd see all the other people of your class. And of course, that's where we also brought in, you know, a power component to it, artifact power, and all those systems. And it's important to bear in mind that, you know, we're planning a couple of expansions in advance.
Like
the
the
development
Jailer.
cycle of an expansion is quite lengthy, from initial conception to pre-production, concepting, beginning to flesh things out. So we had, we knew what the feature set for Shadowlands was going to be well before Battle for Azeroth came out.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that was the ongoing outgrowth of like what seemed like a very successful experiment at Legion. Legion was very well received overall, very popular overall. People had nothing but praise for its systems, and so part of what the team as a whole was thinking was like, okay, this is a great formula for a modern expansion. That
I see the thought process now.
What is our artifacts of the next expansion? What are the things that are going to fill these holes that we're going to leave? Now,
So it's Legion's fault that BFA and Shadowlands had this shit in it? Oh, fuck.
there were a few things that we were still blind to. I think first off was the initial excitement of like, oh my god, I no matter how much WoW I want to play, I can always keep progressing my character. This is awesome. I can log in on Saturdays and feel like I accomplished something, as opposed to the raid logging people were accustomed to in Warlords. That was energizing initially, but gave way to fatigue by the end of Legion, as we started to hear, complaints about AP.
By the end of Legion, bro, by the end of the first tier. Halfway through the first tier, whenever it became bad was whenever you had that one breakpoint. So there was it was whenever Trial of Valor came out, and I think it was 35 artifact traits. If you had 35 artifact traits, you got a 5% flat damage bonus. And the problem with that, for 54, everything above that was 0.5%. So like the total amount was, 35 for Guarm, 54 for Crosus. That's fucking right. I had 54 before Crosus even came out, okay? Like it was some degenerate shit that I was engaged in. I got all of my traits so fucking early on. Anyway, what? Yes, go back, watch the videos. I would log on. Guys, morning. It's 3 p.m. Who's ready for Maw of Souls? I would stream in Legion just so I could get viewer keys. Hey, it worked really well. It worked extremely well. Let me see even, can I think I'm still logged out. Let me show you how bad it was. Because I'll just do this for a second. Because I do think that like in Legion, a lot of the entry systems were massively bad. Like whether it's Titan Forging, whether it was the legendaries, whether it was artifact power. Like artifact power was really cool until you had to hit that breakpoint. And I think that it was also bad because like everybody always felt like, oh, well, you could have gotten even farther if you waited next week. So it's like your efforts are just like continuously being invalidated. So I go to statistics, you go to dungeons and raids. Let's go to Legion. 212 Maw of Souls runs, 188 Advisor Melandris kills. Arcway, I also like doing Arcway because it gave you bonus points. 71. I did all of that in like a month.
Grinding and the sense of like, okay, I can always be progressing my character. That means I always should be progressing my character. I
Oh,
don't
so
have
you're
time
talking
for
about
alts
the
and
never-ending amount you can acquire.
yes.
Versus one thing that took away in BFA was that anything you did gave you AP.
Yes, that continues. So I think, but I think again, a lot of the decisions about what BFA was going to look like were already almost completely locked in for all intents and purposes before we started to learn the lessons from Legion. And even
I feel like that's a problem with the design flow. Like, isn't that bad that you have systems that are in the game that are planned 5 years in advance, and then they're unable to be changed based off of feedback as the 5 years progresses? Like, I think that, I mean, like, you can say this is modular design, you can call it whatever you want, but if this ends up being a handicap, then that's a problem.
Even Shadowlands was beginning to respond to, well, what didn't work in BFA what was missing from BFA, things like what could the successor to the class halls be? What if there are Covenant halls? What if these are, places that have more depth and interest to them than anything we offered in BFA?
All those things would have been cool.
But it wasn't really until we were halfway through that cycle that we started to really have concerns about, the shift that had begun all the way back in Warlords, about the modular approach that would take things away. Because people were not sad to say goodbye to their garrisons at the end of Warlords.
Because
right?
if they'd been iterated on, they were potentially something amazing.
Perhaps, but the feedback, right? So we didn't.
I wasn't happy about getting rid of my artifact weapon. Remember that fucking Juggernaut talent where like you could execute and then it would make your execute do more damage? That was a good time. Yeah, I didn't like that at all.
We didn't really appreciate the extent of that pain. When BFA came out, we certainly did.
Yep.
Losing your artifacts sucked.
True.
Leaving, having all your legendaries disable the second you hit level 115.
Absolutely.
Not a good day getting into that alpha.
And I think, but again, at that
Totally
point, we were
true.
already heavily committed on the course we were on, because we just, at some point,
Wrath Gladiator.
we have to keep marching forward. We have to keep making stuff.
Yeah,
we can't throw out a year of work. But we started to have misgivings about that general direction, and I think realizing that the cycle we're falling into is one where every expansion begins by losing something that was awesome, leaving a hole that we then, like, at best are scrambling to fill, and leave you maybe equal to where you were before. But if we screw up at all,
yeah, it's like you had $100, then they take it away from you and they give you 5 20s, and then they take that away from you, and then they're like, okay, so here's like fucking 5 10s. There's like let's say 20 5s and like 3 1s. There you go. Okay, put it together. Let's see how much you still got. It's like still like either way you're getting. I mean, I know it doesn't add up to 100. I did the math wrong, but like you get the idea.
Lesser. That is not a path to success.
Yeah, it sucks.
And so that was the genesis for
and
what
it did feel good in Mists of Pandaria. Like, I remember whenever I could first solo, like, Hakar, or whenever I could first solo Ragnaros, and like, getting more and more powerful every expansion. And in Legion, whenever you had, like, fucking 3 million damage, you could do, like, 3 million damage and shit like that, it was awesome.
I would like to think of as sort of the beginning of a third era of WoW philosophy, which begins with Dragonflight, which is trying to return to the idea of focused, evergreen things, improving baseline systems, introducing new systems into the game that we plan to carry forward, not introducing systems.
So they're basically saying that, like, the problem that they ran into in Mists of Pandaria, yeah, they're going to run into that problem again, but that's in like 8 years, who gives a fuck? Yeah, all right, cool. I'm in favor of this, yeah.
That we plan to, throw away at the end of a year and a half or whatever.
They gave up, good. Thank
but
you.
Doing so, I think, in a more sort of thoughtful way that, as you were saying much earlier, gives us some opportunities to make use of prior content and, feels like it's going to be sustainable in the years to come.
I think we're really at our best when we're looking to solve problems, right? Like when you look at Mythic Plus that was introduced in Legion.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Really, the problem that we were trying, that started from a problem. We identified a problem of like, we build these dungeons that are so beautiful, they're so epic, they're really exciting experiences, and then you stop running them after like, the first month of the game.
Well, the new idea is really cool. Mix them all.
Well, Mythic Plus is great. Like, I think Mythic Plus is great. Now, I hate Mythic Plus, but I think it's great. There's a lot of things I hate, but I think they should exist.
Comes back in.
Yeah, and that's another one where we're looking to really take
it's great for a lot of
cues
people.
from other games and really look to build off of that foundation of like
steal
such strong
other ideas
content
from
of
other
like,
games.
okay, cool, these were still fantastic dungeons.
And you're not the only ones. Like
Exactly.
nearly every MMO we've looked at that's gone the decade plus mark is now looking back at the not only thousands of man hours but millions of dollars that have probably been spent, and they're just like, why did we just abandon that exactly?
We're just gonna leave that there?
Yeah. I mean,
True.
One of the revelations while I've been here is this idea that you had modular design things, and they had no intention of carrying them forward, and that just feels crazy. To know that it was fully intentional. Like, I get what they're saying is like, because you start the next expansion, thinking about it, planning it a couple of years way before, right? It doesn't quite fit into that mold like Warfronts.
Right.
you know, probably don't fit into Shadowlands particularly well, so we're just going to make it and leave it behind. But as a general whole idea, do you think that's just going to go away? Like, we will look to, why are we investing time in this and not carrying it forward?
So I think there will absolutely be systems that are added to WoW that are evergreen and will continue to, you know, move forward with us, and will continue.
This is kind of what I was saying. Is that, like, imagine if for the last 5 or 10 years, instead of adding one of these systems, we had something like the Mage Tower. And think about what the experience would be for a player coming into the game now. Would the game be better or worse? I think it would undeniably be better.
To evolve those, but that doesn't mean that they can't change, right?
You can't think of what it's going to be in 15 years. Right? You have to say, like, let's put it out. What do people like, not like, and sort of grow it from there. And
totally.
Yeah.
Try and make it work. That's what I think we hope for. Because when I found out, it's like, no, it was never intended to go. I was like, you made like Sneaky Pete and this whole AI thing for islands.
Well, I think the reason for that is also because they can be way more creative. They can be super fucking creative and go and do apeshit things if they know that it's not going to have an effect on the overall game. And I think some of that stuff is okay. You can have some apeshit design and, like, know that, okay, this isn't going to last. We're just going to have fun for now.
Yeah, but, you know, it's not going to go anywhere. So when we see that coming in, I think people will be really appreciative of that idea.
Right. And it's always fun. Like you mentioned Sneaky Pete and the islands and kind of the AI that got built there. There's always, you know, exciting opportunities when we build things like that to try to look at that as something that we could leverage for a future feature, right? Like, I've always loved the idea of, like, gosh, it wouldn't it be cool to add, like, an arena that was just played against, like, you know, AI essentially, but what if we made them really good and, like, that could be pretty fun, again? Right? Like, can we, like, recreate some of the, like, BlizzCon shit?
Yeah, so it's like PTSD from fucking Trial of the Crusader. Yeah, that's awesome. That's super cool. Great idea, man. Yeah, let's totally fucking have that.
Champions, like how they're playing,
really fun.
And like, hey, play against the BlizzCon champions. Like, what?
We did use some of the technology, right, with things like the Comp Stomp, Wrath-Basing Comp Stomp. So
Comp Stomp is great. I actually think Comp Stomp is really good design. It's super fucking easy. Even if you are absolute garbage, you'll still win. And it happens every once in a while. Everybody shows up for it, and it's totally fine.
Certainly are not arena champions that you play against. It's like basically the honor farm situation, but we try to find small ways like that.
Yeah.
This modular design concept is really...
That's good that she knows what people really use it for, though. She's like, acknowledges it. She's like, yeah, so, it's just honor farming. Yeah, good.
Really important to understand how World of Warcraft is made, and it will answer a ton of questions you probably have about features that came into the game and then disappeared. Features you probably consider to be failures. Torghast, Island Expeditions, Warfronts, etc., etc.
I don't think any of these systems were failures necessarily. I just think that the implementation was bad. And I think actually these systems, if they were slightly changed, would have been really, really good.
They
were all great ideas.
Dragonflight is about to come out, but Dragonflight has actually been in production for 2 years. As me and you are talking right now, and no, I did not get to see anything, I intentionally closed my eyes, the next expansion is already in the works.
So you can see by the color there, it's going to be a Void Lord expansion. You know, Preach has given us a hint there. Yeah, it's going to be a Void Lord expansion. That's crazy, guys. Holy shit, I'm excited, yeah.
Now they have to base what's coming out next on what they've done before and what you guys might like. The best example here is Artifact Power and Azerite Power. Ian mentioned that
I dislike the idea that because of a production pipeline, it's okay to have obvious problems like this that continue. I think that this is a problem in design. Like, it's like you can't say, like, well, because of our production pipeline, we're not able to make changes on things for, like, 3 years. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely fucking ridiculous. If your production line and your design schedule and your pipeline for making content can't be altered because of some made-up system, then you're just making the game worse.
During Legion, they took a risk with artifact power, a never-ending grind.
They did.
And it was met very, very well by the players. At the same time, Legion's...
I think that the player reception for artifact power was like this. It was high, and then it got worse, and then it got better. This was Emerald Nightmare. This is probably TOV, OV. This was Nighthold, and this was TOS, and this was Antorus. This is kind of what happened.
Coming out, and people are responding to this. Battle for Azeroth is already in production. This system is going to continue in terms of Azerite power. That means that the guys are already building their island expeditions.
Nah, bro, like, I don't believe that. That's bullshit, because, like, remember whenever Preach said that you could get all of the traits from your Heart of Azeroth at the beginning of fucking Battle of the Tsar lore, and then after Blizzard realized that everybody would already start with the second trait, they scaled back the amount of traits that you needed to make it higher, so you had to spend more time grinding Azerite power. I will not accept the idea that they had to retroactively change this supposed 3-year pipeline to make people farm a little bit more Azerite power because of some 3-year plan. Because if that was the case, they would have gone with the original one. Yeah, no, bro. Like, no shot.
Daily quests out where things will pop out to collect Azerite power. They're already building Azerite armor. This is all the stuff they're building as the natural succession to...
Somebody says that's micro, not macro? Bro, it is a micro thing. So if... No, it's not micro or macro. That's like saying deleting 1-0 from a boss's health is micro because you're only deleting 1-0 from a boss's health. It was a massive fucking change.
Artifact weapons and artifact power. It's not until the end of Legion that people start getting annoyed with artifact power. It's an endless farm. I've been doing it now for 2 years. I'm getting frustrated by it. Oh no. Our next expansion has exactly the same system in place with more twists and turns involved in it. And there's nothing they can do about it. We've already built it. It's ready to go. We can't just scrap it and start again because it takes 2 years to make more things. This modular design concept also plays into this.
And I also, like, for another example, this modular design concept, why did that make it to, why was there not a cap on the amount of gold that would take to respec Azerite armor? Like, you're really going to try to use a modular design example for this? This is ridiculous. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, what the fuck? Absolutely not. Yeah, they didn't. Yeah, it's a gold sink and it was obvious. It was too much. They didn't want you to respec that often. It was by design. Yeah.
Let's look at mop farms. Mop farms were super cool, but they make no sense when going into the next expansion, Warlords of Draenor. What they do, though, is use that technology. So we see mop farms as a cool thing that disappeared. The trick is, it was never meant to continue.
Well, they did use it. They had it with the mine and then also with the herbalism garden. This is a good point, and this was good.
What it did do is turn into garrisons. Now, garrisons contained a bit of farming and a bit more customization. Garrisons disappear. We as players see those features as failures. We look at garrisons and we say failure. Torghast, failure. We look at island expeditions, failure. And we consider them failure because they don't exist going forward. The fact of the matter is, they were never going to carry forward. Now, this leads to various problems on iteration. How much resources, if players don't like it, can you throw into a system that you know is going to be gone in several months? The answer is not a lot, because you're going to be rid of it soon anyway. That's what's going to happen, and its replacement is already being built, if not already built. So you know that you're going to get an upgraded version. This is why they utilize the technology at the back end to make the next thing better, or they hope it's going to be better. So mop farms becomes garrisons. They then use that garrison technology to create class halls. They then use the class hall technology to make covenant sanctums. Using that same tech, and therefore they don't consider it a failure. But in the player's eyes, we do consider it a failure. And this is what's going to change.
Well, I think this is fine, right? Like using the the technology of like I think a lot of the like phasing and grouping technology in WoW, like the actual like tech design, like is it easy to use, etc. I think the answer to all those questions is yes. I think almost all of those design things are good.
Us constantly slotting in these Lego bricks
like they
of
work.
These various features and systems that we don't understand, like Soulbinds, and Netherlight Crucible, all those things that we just were like, what is this? And then it just disappears. Essences would be another example. Now we're going to look at things long term. Talent trees, we can keep that going. The new profession system, we can keep that going. And whatever else Dragonflight has in mind, there will still be some things which are expansion specific.
This is one of the good things that PoE did, you know, is that they have, and it can be a problem, and it's become a problem, and they've had to scale this back multiple times, is that every time a new league comes out, this is something that's going to be added into the game. And many things that are received well go what they call core, which means that it now is part of the game going forward in all leagues in the future until otherwise stated. So I think that Blizzard using something like this, a system like this, is good for WoW.
Because it does make sense that the new Island Expedition doesn't make sense in a Shadowlands environment, but it should be way less so, with much more care given, like other MMOs are doing, to allowing them to go forward and be iterated on and stay with the familiar for the players.
Yes.
This feels like it's perfectly in line with the actual gameplay core loop that you're changing. Are you worried? Because I feel like the game has been out so long now. Someone like me could look at Dragonflight and be like, heaven. I can come away for a week like I am now here with you guys. I'm not screwed.
Yeah.
I'm not screwed over. I'm not screwing my raid team or anything like that. And this is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But we've now got a huge amount of players who have never known World of Warcraft without logging in and having a list created for them of things that they should do. And how do you think that's going to be met with the player base once they get into an environment it's like, choose where you want to go?
And I think the hope is well. I mean, there's still you can.
There's going to be people that don't like it, like THD, for example. THD loved the artifact power grind. He loved being able to like infinitely farm and get more and more powerful. That's totally okay, right? Because it's like, yeah, flex, right? It's another one. Like there are going to be people that liked it the other way. I don't think this is a good way to design the game overall. But yes, of course, you're always going to have people that like the other way too.
Get your world map, and there's plenty of activities. There's world quests,
there's
events. There's things to do to raise your different renowns that you're
in
chasing.
total, there must be dozens.
And early on, again, for the people who don't have their sights set on doing high Mythic Plus or jumping in and getting into Mythic rating as soon as they can, a lot of the item level rewards from all of those systems will be very relevant. And going and helping either Rathian or Sibelian out the Obsidian Citadel, or otherwise depends. It depends on how I feel on any given day.
He can't say, because he said that who he thought his favorite character was the future leader of the Black Dragon Flight. Now we all know it's going to be Rathian, right? I mean, like, it's obvious, but you keep that in mind. I think there's actually a chance that it could not be Rathian, and Rathian goes, he goes and he does his own thing. He becomes like a wanderer or an adventurer or something like that.
Commit.
No.
Pick a side.
We'll see what the canon choice ends up being. But in any case, like all of those things are offering powerful rewards. It's not like we've just said there's no more reward in the game. But for the people who, the people who are focused on the hardcore stuff, who are getting, 410 plus gear from other sources, they have plenty to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't need to try to, offer them more reasons to spend more time in World of Warcraft.
That's actually I'm really glad that he said that, because like a lot of end-game players, like this is one of the reasons why I burned out of raiding. It's like there's like all this other shit that you had to do at the same time. Like back in the day, you just show up for the raid, do the raid, you're done. All right, where the loot? There's the loot. There we go. I'm done. Peace. But like then there's artifact power, fucking Azurite power, all this other extra stuff. And like, yeah, just acknowledging like, bro, if people are farming Mythic raid gear, they're not going to quit. They're going to make another character.
Or otherwise spending. And I think, all this is just there with a sense of freedom to explore it as you see fit. For some people, maybe you're going to focus on getting raid ready during the first couple of weeks. and you'll come back and check out the renown tracks later because there are mounts or dragon riding skins or other things you want to unlock. Or again, if you're someone who's really focused on professions, there are specific recipes. If you're a leather worker, you're going to want to work on that centaur renown to get some of the leatherworking recipes from there. So it's all of the same philosophies are there. It's just we don't have that artifact power, that soulbind renown.
Well, yeah, that was the whole problem. The problem wasn't that the systems existed; it's that they were mandatory. Nobody had a problem with war fronts whenever they weren't mandatory. People might say, yeah, they suck, they're boring, I don't do them. But it wasn't a problem with the game. It only becomes a problem whenever you make it a problem by making people feel like they have to do it in order to progress or to be competitive.
That thing that is just hitting everyone over the head with being completely mandatory regardless of your playstyle. And again, that gets back to we don't want to force players into content that they don't inherently enjoy. We want to let you play the game the way you want to play the game.
Are you far more relaxed now with it's okay if people aren't logging in week on week? If they log in just for... Because you mentioned earlier, raid logging would be the prime example, but obviously in terms of logging in to do the specific thing it wants to do, because it's felt like for a good long time now, we want people online, we want WoW to be a part of their daily habits almost.
Yeah, it's like you have mobile game. It's like, okay, you have to log on. All right, check your login rewards. Okay, check your daily track rewards. All right, check your battle pass. Check your premium battle pass. All right, good. Do you have enough energy for today to do your different tasks? Okay, you've got to go do your tasks. And then, you have the bonus weekly event that's going on right now. It's going to expire in 4 days. Okay, let's go ahead, make sure that you do that task for the bonus weekly event. Okay, good. And then there's also a boss you have to kill once a week. You only kill them. You haven't killed them all this week, so you have to go kill him too. It's like, all right, finally, I'm done. I can play the game now. And then you log off. And then you log on next day, you do all of it again. Yeah, it's like mobile games retention mechanics.
By intention, your mission, even your mission board from BFA, collecting your Azerite power, whatever it might be.
I'll give an example. I actually think the mission table for Shadowlands, totally fine. I have no problem with the mission table from Shadowlands. It's totally okay, not a big deal. Because it's not mandatory.
As a lot of these systems seem designed to engage somebody, at least on a daily basis, as the norm. So are you more relaxed now with that?
Dailies are good. Having to do dailies is bad.
Probably isn't going to be... It won't be for me, is what I would say. It's not going to be... there's other options out there that are equally as fun, and maybe less fun, but also I can jump into that experience very quickly. You've got games like Path of Exile out there that are just free.
Sure.
Not going through a great time right now, but generally speaking, the market is so flooded with this.
Really
is this something
curious
you're adapting to, accepting, or...?
I mean, all the above to an extent. I think we never want... our goal is never habit in the sense of, you have to log in when you don't want to. Our goal is for you to want to log in. Our goal is for you to want to play World of Warcraft and to look forward to getting back into the game, to have something you want to complete, something you want to chase. And if you're not wanting it, then getting you to do it despite that isn't a victory for us. It's just burning people out.
Yeah,
and so I think giving people the freedom to feel like they can take a step away, do something in real life, play another game for a while without falling behind is valuable. I think the one thing that we do worry about when it comes to sort of the raid logging phenomenon or people taking breaks is the social nature of the game. Is sort of the critical mass of keeping a group together. If the person who is really excited to log in to do things with their guildmates logs in and no one from their guild is online because of whatever reason.
Yeah, that's always sad whenever nobody's logged on in your guild, and it's like you look at the guild and it's like last online 6 months ago, 8 years ago. It's like, oh fuck, I'm not in a guild, I'm in a graveyard. Yeah, of course that's depressing. But I think also giving people more ways to have communities in the game and find people that are like-minded, I think that's what's really important with that, is that you give people other opportunities to make friends. You give people other opportunities to interact with each other. And I think Cross-Faction was a really good example of that.
And then they just log back off, kind of disappointed, because they were hoping to play with friends, but their friends weren't around. That can be an issue. And I think that's something, going back to WoD, to Warlords of Draenor, that was probably the peak of the raid logging era, where really there was other than checking your garrison, if it wasn't raid night, there was nothing to do. It wasn't because
That wasn't
Plus didn't
outside
even
your
exist back
garrison
then.
as well.
Yeah, and it would also provide resources for you, so you didn't need to farm consumables back then because the garrison just paid for everything.
You know, like,
Yeah.
go in, look at all 10 of your characters, or I think
Yeah,
it's 10
and
at a time.
And so that felt
I think WoW does have to have better social structures and better social systems. Like, you look at Final Fantasy, it's like, as I said, I went over to Moonguard, fucking Goldshire Inn, and I asked them, why aren't you guys ERPing on Final Fantasy? None of them had a good answer for me. They're like, well, I mean, that's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. It's a different game, I guess. I played this game a lot. Like, yeah, so the truth is, I think a lot of people, they absolutely love being able to log on and have friends and see people in the game. I remember, like, during the raids, like, nobody would talk because it was the raid. And after the raid, everybody in Vent would, like, get into their own different Vent channels, and we would all do, like, Isle of Quel'Danas dailies together, or do, like, BGs together or something like that. And I think that's the type of gameplay that, like, you need to have. But in order to do that, you have to have content that's fun to do outside of the raids, and also, like, more social experiences that you can have in the game. Because I feel like the WoW doesn't really have a lot of very compelling social experiences.
a step too far toward that end of the spectrum. But ultimately, you know, as long as we're keeping social groups somewhat healthy, we want people to be able to play the game in the way that makes them happiest.
Excellent. Like, this is all very positive.
That, right?
Yeah,
it's
like,
it seems like it should. It's kind of a no-brainer, but
well, no, I mean that's the experience I've had, and I've been on some mystical quest now, like Kung Fu, is like trying all these different experiences. Like, the main thing I'm seeing is they just create experiences that you want to log in for, you don't have to log in for, which is what I remember from World of Warcraft.
There's a player base of millions of folks who've said, we like this game, we've chosen to make this our home. We ignore them at our folly. Like, what do they want? What do they not want?
I think that's enough about gameplay. Dragonflight is changing so much. This mandatory content that we've been burdened with for the last 8 years is going away. There'll still be some stuff, and that's basically them wanting you to be excited about it. Come and check it out, see what it's like, but then you can leave it alone. It's more of an introduction than anything else, and I think that's a fair balance that they've struck.
Yeah, that's
But now we need to move on to a more sensitive subject. The elephant in the room. Sexual allegations against Blizzard has been a prominent subject around the world. It's still ongoing, with lawsuits still pending.
Yep.
But let's find out what they've done to change things internally.
Okay, let's hear it.
A frat boy culture. That is how Activision Blizzard is now being described here in this new lawsuit filed by the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing. The state agency alleges that female employees there are subjected to sex discrimination, unlawful sexual harassment, retaliation, and unequal pay.
Let's get into a few ground rules of this subject because it's a little sensitive, and investigations are still ongoing and probably will be ongoing for a while, which means we can't dive into specifics. Forever. We're simply not allowed. I'm also not a journalist. I am not the person who should be diving into this stuff. There are lawyers and things working on this currently to find out exactly what happened and make sure the right people are compensated. We know certain things have happened at Blizzard. We are fully aware that they have done a complete equity paycheck on every single employee in the business, making sure that person A doing the same job as person B are being paid exactly the same amount for doing that job. We know that's taken place, and people are very happy with it.
Okay.
What we're going to do is give Blizzard the platform. We're going to ask the question of what their goal is overall. What is their philosophy overall to make sure things like this never happen again? Amongst all the Dragonflight changes that have come from the last 7 years of expansion, it's been so changed. But you've also had so much, and we've got to get into this, is like so much upheaval internally with COVID. We obviously had all the harassment stuff that came through and massive changes amongst the staff. Like, how have you dealt with that in terms of dealing with the motivation of the staff, the internal environment, and then pushing forward with an entirely new philosophy on the game for Dragonflight? It's got to have been a rough couple of years.
It's definitely been a challenging couple of years, but I think the team today is stronger and more tight-knit than we've ever been, having come through that and having,
I think that makes sense.
Weathered it. I mean, COVID in 2020 was obviously, threw the whole world for a loop, to say the least, and began a process for us of relearning a lot of sort of lifelong creative and collaborative processes of how do you have what used to be the casual conversation around a whiteboard, or bouncing ideas off your office mate.
To talk about it yesterday, it's like it's very, very strange, and in the creative environment.
Oh, that's the girl that helped me get the interview with Ian.
And Dragonflight in this
Winksy.
new place, so it's got to have been for you who's leading the charge. It's like, okay, this is a lot of challenges to face.
I think it's been resolving some problems and figuring out systems and processes that work, and a lot of I think a lot of what we come up with, we would keep regardless, even if we could all come back to the office tomorrow. There are certain meetings that we would have that we'd keep virtual forever. I think it's the social connections, it's the casual interactions that are the hardest to reproduce, but we continue to work at it. And then obviously the other major event last year, I think really it triggered a period of ongoing self-reflection for the team as a whole, for the company as a whole. Starting last summer, it was both looking inward to our culture, to our history, to frankly ask, like, are we who the internet says we are? Is this who we really are? And I think the answer we came to is no, but also certainly it's who we never want to be and want to have no chance of being. And so how do we change our processes? How do we develop a culture of feedback and listening and openness and trust that makes sure that even the slightest hint of impropriety will be raised and dealt with before we ever got any place close the allegations from years and years.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's not really that complex, right? You just treat people right, don't fuck with them, and pay them fair. I mean, we don't need a fucking like a 10 Commandments about this. Like, it's just like treat people like people, and you're gonna be 95% of the way there.
Years ago, but at the same time, we were also listening to our player base and kind of re-examining, we were hearing lots of feedback, not just about anger at the revelations in the lawsuits, but about the state of the game.
Yep. It was a double whammy.
Your I'm quitting video very much included. Of like, we're missing something big here, right? Our goal at the end of the day is to make a world that players want to spend time in, that they're going to love spending time.
No, I feel like this year for Blizzard was absolutely a come to Jesus moment. Like, I mean, absolutely. Like, I mean, Diablo's into shitter. StarCraft, what the hell is that? Warcraft 3 Reforged got refunded. Fucking World of Warcraft sucks dick. Like, Overwatch 2 is a meme. Like, I mean, we gotta get everybody together in the same room. And we gotta have a conversation about what the fuck we're doing here. Like, we're really... This is not working.
And that's
Blizzard. Yeah, there you go.
All of us. And we're failing.
This is the third day we've been here on the Blizzard campus, and it's a strange, strange place. It's huge. 7 giant buildings housing Overwatch over there. They're doing World of Warcraft in there. They're doing WoW Classic over there. It's a weird, weird environment to be in because there's nobody here.
Oh, that's cool. Damn, that's like Malfurion. Is that little bitch Anduin? Jaina? I guess that might be... Oh, that's gotta fucking be Bolvar. Maybe Uther, I don't know. Thrall? Sylvanas? Garrosh, of course. Is this Ner'zhul, maybe? And that's Gul'dan? And that's a bear.
This has been running about 15% staff on site since Shadowlands, since COVID
Rexar and
it doesn't plan on changing.
Misha,
people that are here generally come in for 1 or 2 days a week. The rest of the time they work from home, and all across California, it's on site since Shadowlands, since COVID kicked in. Blizzard has been running about 15% staff on site since Shadowlands, since
so nobody even shows up to work anymore. Okay.
COVID kicked in, and it doesn't plan on changing.
All right.
People that are here generally come in for 1 or 2 days a week. The rest of the time they work from home. And all across California, to the other gaming companies we've spoken to this week, that is going to stay exactly like that.
The last 4 years have been really tumultuous.
So yeah, they just fucking sit at home all day and that's it.
For you guys. We've had COVID and walking around yesterday, wonderful access to see everything and see how it works, but desolate. Very strange, an eerie feeling, because everything is designed for so much fun. Yeah, well, today's an anomaly, and I know that. I've been told that many times by the comms team. They're like, it's not like this. We've not set this up. These aren't paid actors to give it some life. But we did the full tour yesterday. Everything you guys have set up for all the staff is so fun. Like, they're very creative in their places. Seeing the team, the staff just playing volleyball at lunch, that's stuff. That's exactly why we're here. No one sees that. right?
Yeah.
That's what they don't know happens.
Yeah.
But obviously then the allegations come out, huge shake-up at the top. Like, and you guys are the ones who steered that ship, as far as I know. So we need to know, how did you do that? You came into a really rough patch, and then you seemingly have got here. So,
well, I mean, as you pointed out, I mean, who could have predicted the last couple of years? I mean, just having COVID and having to work from home, and we literally mobilized like within a couple of days. It's like, okay, everyone, there's a lockdown happening. You need to go home to be safe. And
Alex Jones,
make sure you have equipment. And then we literally went through a cycle of getting everyone machines. That alone was a big deal, to deal with. And certainly, the issues that we faced as a company and even as our team, our team felt very strongly about, hey, we're going to send our message out to our players. We want them to know where we stand and what we want to be, as a team. And, I'm really proud of how much nobody on the team got defensive. Nobody said, oh, but this, that, or the other. And said, no, okay, this is a wake up call for us. This is something that we have to ingrain in our culture and reinforce. And we've grown as a team, and as new players come onto our team, we want to make sure that they are safe, that they understand what our values are, and that we want our game to be inclusive and diverse. Because after all, our audience it's around the globe. I'm going to throw one thing at you, because I also oversee the Warcraft franchise.
Yes.
In our 28-year history, we've accumulated 250 million players.
That's a lot of people. Holy shit. God damn. So that's an actual number. God damn. Holy shit. That's a lot of people.
In Warcraft. Around 250 million players.
It's crazy when you see the number, right?
It's nuts.
It just seems unrealistic.
You think of how, big that is. And it's important that the team that is making the game and the content that's in that game reflects that diverse audience. And that's something that this team has embraced wholeheartedly. And it's been great. It's been great to see, and letting our game and our team speak for us, and what we stand for. I've never been through that kind of experience before, especially making games, which I think a lot of people think of as kind of trivial experience before, especially making games.
He's just sitting there. So that's why we have so many fucking corgi things in the game. There's some fucking guy at Blizzard owns a corgi, really likes corgis, and now there's like 8 different items in the game about corgis.
Which I think a lot of people think of as kind of trivial entertainment, or at least they did when I first got started with it. And now it's an important part of people's lives.
No, I totally get that, and I can't say I've never seen a happier workforce besides mine, obviously. No, everybody's been super happy.
Feel free to speak candidly if you don't agree.
But it generally has felt that way being here, because that's exactly why I asked to do this. I watched the latest couple of interviews. The Dragonflight announcement I really disliked because it was very glossy and shiny. I was like, this isn't gamers. It's not us. Who are you talking to? And then you get here and it's like, this is the reality. Chilling out, shouting, playing volleyball, and doing all those kind of things. And I think you should be proud of what you've done, because unless you're all like it's a North Korea thing going on out there, everyone seems pretty happy.
The stories that came out over that time were absolutely horrific, and they're still ongoing, which is why the guys couldn't say much. No woman working anywhere should feel that way.
Well, they're not going to be able to say shit about it because of the company policy. Like, I mean, I know this very fucking well. It is like, if you have something like this, it's ongoing, you can't say a fucking thing about it.
This is an industry-wide problem that we're seeing all over the place, and hopefully is being addressed. Blizzard themselves are doing what they can, making sure that the lines of communication are open, and the message has been absolutely loud and clear. We spoke to people off camera, on camera about this, and that message was simple. This can never, ever happen again. They can't afford to have it happen again, and they don't want to be associated with that kind of environment.
Well, it makes everything worse, right? Because like you've got people like, what you have to remember is that like a lot of the sexual assault stuff and like the harassment, etc. Like all that was part of it, but that wasn't the whole thing. there were also people that like felt unsafe in the workplace for other reasons, things that were not sexually related, you know, like intimidation, people being forced to work long hours, etc. It's like you go to work and you're constantly like looking over your fucking shoulder, worried that somebody's gonna like do some weird shit to you or put you in a weird position. Like, it's just gonna be, that's gonna be all you think about whenever you're at work. And you're not thinking about doing your job. You're thinking about this bullshit.
Trying to move forward as a team, and as Ian said, they don't want to be the people the internet says they are. They don't want that at all. And it's nice to see that during the stages that the staff did, that John Haidt was out there supporting them as well. The new leadership is a big part of why we went. Fresh blood in. We've had Holly come in, Mike Ibarra come in, and we have Microsoft potentially coming in the future, who are all addressing this issue to make lives better for themselves. And we hope for that to be there. In total, Activision Blizzard has laid off 37 staff, reprimanded a further 40 plus. I can't predict the future, and it's not my place to do so. I can't talk to everybody at Blizzard, and the fact is, as was pointed out to us several times, is the fact that people can now work from home has given them a safety net to be able to speak out as quickly as possible if something is going wrong. What the future holds is on Blizzard. And so we'll pay attention to these ongoing lawsuits, what's going on and what they're doing with. But I can tell you this, and I'm okay with saying this. What I saw while I was there was extremely happy people. Obviously not everybody's there, but that's what I saw. The only times that Blizzard asked us to turn our cameras around was when the staff were squealing with delight at seeing other employees. They've been apart for so long, and they love working there, and they love the other people they work with.
Yeah,
We've heard from other sources that you will see in other interviews coming out later that the rumors and reports are that things are much, much, much better at Blizzard itself, especially...
Well, of course that makes sense, right? It's like, have y'all... And the thing is, like, people might say, like, oh, they didn't really get rid of that many people, etc. Have y'all ever had, like, a party where, like, one person shows up at the party and it ruins the party? Like, I feel like it's very easy for one person to ruin a lot of other people's fun. Abso-fucking-lutely, man. It only takes one. Yeah, and especially if that person at the party is your fucking boss. And it's not a party, it's your job. Yeah, I could easily see how they can make everything worse very easily. And removing a handful of people would improve the quality quite a bit.
In the Warcraft team, and they're all working to make things good for them. That's what we know, but it's up to them to prove it.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to discuss is, why did we go? Why did we do this? Why did I pay to send me and another member of my staff all this equipment over across the other side of the world in order to see Blizzard? When I left, I was about as deeply upset about a video game as I'd ever been. World of Warcraft provided me so much, and I had to say goodbye. But I felt we owed them another chance. And what was really interesting is that the top execs at Blizzard, not just in regards to me, but in regards...
Let me read one. Come on, Asmon LFAO. It's easy for one person to ruin a party, but this is work. Come on now. I love Preach. Love his content. That's complete and utter bullshit. Really? What about the CEO of Artesian? What about that? People saying that Elon Musk is ruining Twitter. What about all that? Like, there are a lot of cases where one person or a handful of people can massively influence an entire company culture or make it a lot worse. Yeah, the method stuff.
Regards to you guys as well, who may have left, felt the same way.
WoW, when it first came out, I mean, Facebook was only at Harvard. It hadn't yet hit the rest of the world. And for a lot of people, social interaction through the chat of WoW and logging in on WoW was one of their first experiences in being around a bunch of other people and exchanging ideas. Even though the the premise is we're playing this game together, but we're also having meaningful discourse. And I think that we want to see that we're doing the same thing 5 and 10 years from now that we did back.
Yeah, exactly. But that requires innovation and evolving. You can't just do the same thing that you were doing in 2004 because the same thing is different now. Somebody's saying that, like, I by the way, I did not mean to say that Elon is ruining Twitter. I do not think Elon is ruining Twitter. I think that people are massively overblowing it. I don't think he's, like, massively saving it yet either. We'll have to see what happens. I'm just giving this as an example. Yeah, I do not think he's ruining Twitter. I'm just giving an example. This is, you don't have to prove or disprove anything to me. Please stop.
Clint.
Especially because seemingly when I stopped making regular content, I mean, you guys, you know, not directly, but World of Warcraft gave me a career. I've traveled the world with my children because of World of Warcraft, and to leave that behind was devastating. Like, to the point where I could not play this game anymore. That's where I was at. I can't even fathom logging into play anymore. Nope. We met in 15 years ago when you were in Molten Core.
Wow.
He was just a raider in Molten Core, in my Molten Core guild. And we disconnected for a decade, and then, because I was streaming and stuff, he was like, "Oh, Mike."
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, and now he works for me, and we're all doing very well. So I owe all that to. So it's like, leaving it behind was devastating. And then I see Dragonflight's coming out, and I kind of got the message. We kind of changed everything that you were moaning about. Come have a look. I was like, okay. And then I came in, I was skeptical. I was a pessimist. I was like, it's here somewhere. There's Azerite power under this table. I know there is. It's lurking, and it's like, no, it's not there.
That's what I was saying too. Whenever that came out, I'm like, all right, let's see what this is really gonna be.
That's when I watched the last interview with Ian and Max. I was like, this ain't right. Let's send a message. Can we come? Can we do something that's casual, relaxed, a conversation? Instead of like, here's 20 questions. Go. Right, I'm going.
I feel the over request.
So thank you.
Oh, no, thank you.
Thank you very much.
You've been wonderful, both of you.
Yeah, thanks for not giving up on us.
Yeah.
How can I? I agree with you guys.
The sun is setting on our time here at Blizzard for now, and this video. Everything we were promised, we were given. Unprecedented access. We got to go absolutely everywhere. We were well taken care of. We got to look at everything, and it's hard not to be impressed with the changes in leadership and the direction that they're going with this game. I can't promise what's going to be here in the next 5 years. What I can tell you is, as I'm talking to you right now, a meeting has been going on since 5 a.m. discussing where World of Warcraft will be in the next 10 years.
5 a.m.?
They're duly focused on new things. It's Era 3 is what they're calling it. It's going to be a big change from everything we've seen since Legion, since Classic. They're going in a different way, and they're going to see how people like it, and they're going to adapt. Everything they've told us is that they're listening to player fluid feedback. The game is going to be dictated far more by what players want to do. The idea of modular content will remain, but now they're looking to make content that is far more evergreen. Features added in Dragonflight should still have relevance 3 expansions down the road. Not just left to the bin like Warfronts, Island Expeditions, Torga.
So then you're saying that we're going to have dragon riding in the whole game? Well, then let's just fucking do it now. Let's just do it now. I don't want to wait till the end of the expansion. Let's just have it right now. Come on.
Garrisons, the list goes on. Class halls, which have all been fan favorites, some of them less so, but then just disappeared every single time, which was by design in the past. That's going to change. They're going to look at it in a different way. It's worth a look, and it's worth checking out because their intentions seem very, very pure. I'm super happy with what we found here.
Well, it more than pure, it's in their best interest. Like, what are you, like, they're not going to just make another expansion that sucks. People keep quitting.
I couldn't have asked for more. I couldn't have asked for more time, and I'm glad we came, and I'm glad we did this. Thank you for coming along for this journey, and we'll see you again soon.
Holy shit, what a video. Oh my God, what a fucking video. I cannot believe I went through that whole thing. That didn't even feel like an hour. This is a good fucking video, guys. Y'all need to give it a like. Preach really went, he really went out of his way with this one. Holy fucking shit, wow. Wow. Well, literally, yeah, make sure to give it a like, give him a sub. Holy shit, man, this is a good video. Oh my God. It's a 2-hour react? I don't even know. Yeah, that was just only part 1 as well. Oh, thank God. That's more content for later. This is S-tier content. Yeah, this is fucking great, man. He's good at interviews. Yeah, he is. Oh my God. Just want I just want to play the amazing raids. The only thing good about the game, less like an Ender Mythic with less than 1 hour daily investment without a fucking handicap, it won't happen. Yeah, it seems like they're not going to have that anymore, which is a good thing. And it was good to see like all the different people that like, you know, Ian, Holly, and John Haidt. Like, I mean, you see these guys all the time whenever, well, guys and girls. You see them all the time whenever, you know, there's an announcement or whatever, and just having them talk about it casually. Now, I think that was really good. It humanizes the people that actually make the game, and it makes the game more of an actual, you know, an endeavor that real people make rather than some sort of, like, capitalistic venture. So it's definitely a good thing. Yeah, please go ahead and give the video a like. This is amazing, amazing, amazing. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to Preach's channel. It seems as though we're going to be getting a little bit more Dragonflight content out of Mike Preach WoW, or now Preach Gaming. Do you think Blizzard should have paid for the travel? No. I actually think that would have been bad if Blizzard paid for the travel, because it would add in a, it's like quid pro quo. You know, like, we're going to pay for you to do this, and then there's like an expectation, a bias, right? Yeah, so you should not pay for it. No. So yeah, it was good for them not to do that. Yeah, what did you guys think of the video? Like, we got a lot to talk about here, honestly, with this. This is just like fucking, there's a lot to go through. Good. It went by so quickly. Good, true and real. True. Opinion on modular design? Well, it's the same as it appears to be Blizzard's opinion. This is no longer something that they can do. It seems like they're moving away from that to an extent. And also, I think that if you have a design system that makes decisions 3 years into the future with a constantly changing audience that has different preferences, that is not able to adjust based off of that, I think that you get into a situation where you are too big to fail, or sorry, too big to succeed. You can't change course. Being dynamic is something that like every single company nowadays has to do. We saw it with COVID, we saw it with supply chain problems, we saw it obviously with a bunch of other shit too, like now with the economy being bad. Being dynamic is what separates a company from being, you know, profitable for a year versus profitable for 50 years. It's being dynamic. You have to be dynamic. Music is loud. I'll turn it down a bit. Skeptic here. It feels like Blizzard marketing, trying not to look planted. It's a good video regardless. Well, whenever people say that it feels like it's marketing or whatever, what does that really mean to you? Yeah, what does that mean to you? Does that mean that they're talking about the game in a positive way? That they're not being negative about it? Like, what do you want to see? Of course it's marketing. Yeah, I mean, of course they want to talk to people that have a platform to make themselves look better, to promote their new product. Duh. I mean, yeah, of course. There's interviews talk about transmog and lifting customization. Yeah, I think that they need to have more of that kind of stuff fixed. It's telling me everything they should be saying. It's not bad at all. It just feels like it's business driven. Well, like, what do you think they were going to say, though? Like, I mean, that's the thing. It's like whenever somebody makes a criticism of something that seems like it's corporate or like business focused, like number one, they are a business. Of course they're going to talk like a business, especially with like the fucking sexual harassment stuff. Of course they're going to fucking do that. You know, I mean, this is for legal reasons. And other than that, I mean, I feel like these were pretty candid. They didn't say anything about daily grinds. Yeah, they did. They explicitly said that. They talked about that in like 3 different points.